What's up, everyone? Welcome to another podcast episode. I think this is my first one where we're going to talk about career in physical verification of chip design. Got it? Yes. Nice. We have a wonderful guest, Ishan. Let's do a quick intro. What do you do? Where are you from? What do you fun stuff about you?
So hi, my name is Ishan. I'm from Chennai, and I'm pursuing my master's from Illinois Institute of Technology in electrical and computer engineering.
Not
uh,
pursuing anymore. You're just
I
graduated.
just graduated in May. I was pursuing,
Yeah.
and I have a focus. My major focus is on like chip design as well as verifying the performance parameters of those chips, basically. And I had a passion for this from my third year in the undergrad, and I always wanted an exposure from a different part of the world to see how the industry works. And I knew that Silicon Valley was the first place, a dream place to get that exposure. I think that is part of a reason why I came to America to also
Nice.
study about the way they work. So
Very cool. We're not in Silicon Valley, although he will be coming very soon. No?
no, not close enough, but close enough.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I have zero idea about chip design or physical verification of chip design. So I apologize, but I might ask you some like silly questions or very
Definitely.
basic questions. And maybe for people who might be interested also would have these questions. So let's start with a very simple basic. I'm assuming you did the same like you did your masters in ECE, so
Yes.
same GRE, TOEFL,
Yes.
etc. What was your profile?
So I have no work experience. I'm a fresher, and I knew that right out of. So I graduated in 2020 in the month of April. So my profile is basically I focused on electronics and wireless communications in my undergrad, and I transferred those basic knowledge into understanding basic coding languages for chips, and then understanding how design work, what kind of software is used for these designs. Researched a bit about that, struggled a lot for giving my GRE, struggled a lot with TOEFL, and unfortunately I was a little bit late for the scholarship section of it, but I did get an admit into IIT.
Okay. And so did you give GRE or not?
I did give GRE.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And did you use GRE? Because a lot of universities
So
were waiting.
at our time, it did count because our first semester was online. It was in the fall of 2020, and they did not waive off the GRE. It was only from beginning of 2021 that they waived off GRE.
Okay.
and TOEFL.
So what was your GRE score? TOEFL, IELTS. What did you do?
So my IELTS band was 8, and my GRE score was 310.
Oh, nice. Okay. And you said you were late on getting scholarship at IIT.
Yes.
So what is like? Let's talk about the fees then. What is the fees for IIT?
So per semester, the fees goes around to almost 11 to 12 lakhs INR, which converts to about 16 to $17,000.
Wow. So that's roughly 48.
Roughly 48 to 50 lakhs.
And that's just the fees. Not
That's
the-
just tuition. Yes.
Okay.
Not
And then
living
what about the
expenses.
cost of living? What does that look like?
So rent covers about 328 per head. Utilities is another 50 to 60, give or take, and you also have groceries which come up to if if you manage a good enough diet, it goes to almost 100 to 150 depending on how much you buy groceries. So in total about
500 to 600.
Yeah, 600 on a
Okay.
monthly basis.
Okay. And then did you have on-campus job?
For the first semester that I was here, no, I did not have any on-campus job. From my second sem, which was technically my third semester, second semester in the US, I
Okay.
had an on-campus job in the canteen as well.
Okay, cool. And what's the salary range for that?
So they give us about $16 an hour, which converts to almost 1,200 a month. So that basically takes off your rent and
so
groceries.
good. And you
also
now
save a little
now.
bit, yes.
Okay, got it. And you now have a job.
Yes, I do have a.
When
I do
you
have an offer
did you
letter.
start or you?
So my start date is on the 20th of June.
Okay, nice. So you haven't started yet. Where did you get it?
So the offer came from Siemens
Nice.
in Oregon, and I'm excited to be joining the company. Yeah.
Nice. And where in Oregon is it?
It's a place called Wilsonville. It's about 15 minutes from main city of Portland.
Okay, cool. What's your role there?
So the role, as I said, it's physical verification and chip design engineer. So
Okay, so that's the role.
that is the name of the role.
Okay.
Yes.
And what do people do for that role?
So in that role, you have to get the circuit designs from the circuit team, and you basically use your verification tools on the circuits, as well as you input your own constraints. By constraints, I mean there's a lot of timing constraints, a lot of area constraints, a lot of power constraints.
Okay.
So if a client has a basic need in a chip, so it's up to us to verify that chip as well as make sure it meets its requirements.
And when you say chip, is it like, you know, how Apple is coming up with M1 chip, M2 chip? Is that what you're talking about?
So Siemens's clients like Intel, Nvidia, so they do work closely with these kind of clients. We get chips from them to verify on a
Right.
basis, and then make sure that it's up to their needs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you could be working in Apple for
Yeah.
their own
Yeah, in
M2 chip verification, and you could be
definitely.
testing that. So your job is to, is it to design or is it to test how powerful that chip is?
So mine is just to test and make sure that it reaches that requirement, and in case it doesn't, then I design. Then I make sure that I can implement my own designs on the
Okay.
chip.
And the reason I'm saying Apple is because it's very common. So I'm giving the very basic example. So you know how the fancy keynote happens of Apple where they say,
Yeah.
now M2 is now 15% stronger or whatever, powerful and faster. So you basically validate that and you
Yeah.
can say like, yep, it is 15%
It is
faster.
15% faster. Yes.
Okay, cool. Is it really, or they are just marketing that?
No, it definitely does work. They do put a lot of effort into making sure that they can put as much power as they can as an output from the chip. By giving a very less amount of power as the input. So it's basically a big task.
Yeah, and what's the scope of this field in United States?
Right now, in the past 2 years, silicon industry has been growing up a lot. Even during COVID, there was a big, hiring domain. There was a lot of time in which they hired a lot of people. And right now, when I was, applying for applications and I was giving my interviews, I saw that every day there was a markup of 100, 200 job roles that were opening on LinkedIn.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
that is just from a single a place in the US, from a single headquarters.
Wow. And from your batch or from the people you know for who's pursuing this field, does everyone have a job?
From ECE, as far as I know, yes. Everyone that I know of has a job.
Okay. And do people, like, obviously you did your master's in ECE, but then you specialize in this specific domain. Does people have to choose specialization, or they can keep it general so then they can float around a little bit?
So depending on, it's very good to have a clarity on what you want to do before entering into the degree, because you always get an advisor. And if you're not successful enough to communicate with him as to what you want to do, they will not be able to tell you what subjects to take, what subjects to focus on, that will give you that exposure or the necessary. So I had a course which taught me about Verilog coding. So that was advised, given by, the advice given to me by my advisor. So that was what I had to follow. So
okay. Did you have internship?
No. As I said, I did one semester online.
So you did one semester online, as in not online in United
not
States.
in the US, in India.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So got it. So you did your semester in India, then you came here. Obviously, because of that, you couldn't do internship. Because
no one wants to hire you in the last semester.
Or no,
Or
you
it's
couldn't
very
do it
tough.
because
Because you need to be legally in the US
for
the
1 year.
Yeah.
And then you finished it, so you did it. Okay. Obviously, you didn't have any internship, and then you went to your full-time job search. You got the job. You haven't started it yet, but like, what does your day-to-day look like for this job, for this role? Like, what are you gonna do?
So initially, it's a training period that I start off with, in which they will tell me, in which team am I being assigned to, and what is my specific role in the verification side. So in verification, we have a lot of tools, and this is called Mentor Graphics branch of Siemens, in which they have their own tool to verify chips.
Okay.
So I use a tool called Caliber, which is from Mentor Graphics, and I've studied that all throughout my master's. So I have to use that tool and make sure that the design that I've got from the circuit team meets those specifications, and then I can pass it on for fabrication. So
Okay, so you used a lot of fancy words, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna break it down. So again, going back to it could be iOS, the A1 chip or A2 chip, or
Yeah.
like iPad has another chips or things like that. So these companies, whoever wants to design the chip, they will contact your company like, hey, we want to design this. There's a team who will work on configuring that this is what this chip is going to do, what they want. Now your job is to test.
Yeah.
And even for testing, so you use a lot of tools. Is there any programming?
Not specifically these tools are already inbuilt and coded into the software that we use. It's a Linux based environment that we use for using these softwares. But in terms of coding, we do use basic Verilog test benches. So Verilog is another coding language for the chip.
Okay.
So we write test benches in Verilog to just simulate how the chip does work and just to see what kind of simulations
Oh, I
come
see.
from
So
those chip.
like, for example, people like me who has like 50 browser tabs open, 1,000 applications open, and we are switching back and forth. So you are basically simulating that whole.
Seeing what kind of power or what kind of timing is time factor is playing into how much time it takes you to from switching from one tab to the other,
Right. And battery usage as
battery
well.
usage.
Like how long the battery drain, how long it's going to take to drain the battery, etc. That's so fascinating. And so how much is the coding part and how much is the tools learning part?
I would say in my role specifically, the coding part is not a big factor. The tool part, the softwares that I learned is almost, I would say, 85 to 90% of knowledge that is required for this field. The coding part, you do get the training as you move on.
Yeah.
So an upgrade from this role is a design verification, which I aim to become in another 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
So for that, coding is it's 50-50. So
Okay, got it. And why design verification has more coding?
so in design verification, it's an upgrade from Verilog, which is system Verilog.
Okay.
So that is basically you can write code to design a circuit. So once you write the code, you can use the software to synthesize that code into a chip design.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, that's super interesting. So now let's talk about the curriculum. We talked about what this looks like. Did you learn all these tools and system Verilog and Verilog in your masters?
Yes. So I was I took specific courses which gave me exposure to the tools, which gave me a lot of project work, a lot of lab work to use these tools and to create these designs. And for the coding part, you do get the exposure, but I would still recommend that you practice on your own as well.
Okay. What are some of the skills would you recommend for the students before coming to India? Like you wish that you should have learned while you were in India when you had time.
I wish I knew about Verilog coding in the first place. I would have spent a lot of time, catching up on, Verilog basics, understanding what system Verilog is. So I would be better suited and, to maybe get a job in design verification as soon as I graduate, but it comes in the long term. I would recommend that you focus on what you need to do, like have the clarity in which field you want to go. If you're planning to come into the silicon industry, then please have a big clarity in which field you really want to go.
Okay. And so what tools should they learn before they come to United States? Or what tools should they learn even for getting this role?
For this role, so learning those tools is, you might not have an idea or you might not know about it, but if you do, you can definitely learn about Calibre, which is by Mentor Graphics. You can learn about Vivado, which is by Xilinx, another top maker of these softwares. And there's also Cadence tools.
Okay.
So these three are the top leading industry tools that we use for the softwares.
Okay. And then after your masters, can you get, like, obviously you chose domain specific role, but if you didn't get a job, would you be able to still look at different roles and get a job in different roles?
You can apply for different roles, such as a circuit design engineer, which comes before the verification part, in which you actually use a different software but for designing
Right. So that's where the requirement is like, hey, I want the
I want
M2
this
chip
design. Yeah.
to be this much, etc. So you would be designing.
Designing
So
it.
that's one role.
So that is one role, and then there's another which is a logic design engineer. So after the physical design, you have a logic design in which you write the code and then you synthesize it into another chip. So then you verify the physical design as well as the logic design to make sure that they meet the requirements. So there's a lot of fields that you can go into.
There is a lot of scope, and there is a lot of things which I obviously didn't know.
Yeah.
But like, so I'm guessing there must be, because this industry, everything is running on chips. Like all the hardware is running on chip. So there has to be a lot. Obviously, there's a lot of software job, but then there has to be a lot of these jobs as well. Okay.
Definitely.
Now let's talk about your career job search journey.
Okay.
How did you, like, when did you start looking for job?
So I started by mid of January when I started with my applications, and I had no idea where to begin. I had no idea about any of my seniors. I didn't talk to a lot of my seniors about what they did, what kind of resume should I have, is there any kind of particular format that I need to follow, and it was a tough journey that it began, but coming.
So would you recommend people to do what you didn't do?
I will definitely recommend you to talk to your seniors, go to your advisor. You can always speak to people who have jobs in the role that you're looking for.
So people, please reach out to him.
And, make sure that you have resumes that are specific to the role that you want to do, that just don't have a generic resume that you send out to every single company.
Yeah.
So read through the job description, make sure you put the projects that they have the necessary, requirements that they're looking for. I learned that a little bit late.
So you learned while you were applying.
While I was applying.
So how many, I ask this question a lot to a lot of people, like how many jobs applications did you do before you started getting like some form of interview?
In total, I would have done maybe 1,500 to 2,000 applications. Maybe, yeah.
Wow. And is that all through like online, LinkedIn, or is it specific places you were looking through referrals, through career fairs, or do you tried everything?
So initially, majority of it was on LinkedIn, and then I started, also applying on Handshake. But maximum that I've done is on LinkedIn, and for
people who don't know, Handshake, it's a portal which is given by your university, and these companies register there. They do job openings on the Handshake portal. So you could use that, or you could use LinkedIn to apply. Yeah. I would use Handshake because it's from university, so there's kind of that.
And you can also just talk to the recruiter directly on Handshake. So.
Yep. Okay. You were saying that you applied through Handshake, LinkedIn.
Yeah. And by almost March, I started getting calls by mid-March to late March. And
so from January till March, you did not or hardly got calls. Yeah. You woke up with a lot of rejections. Yeah. Was that discouraging?
At times, yes, but I did have my friends to talk to. I did tell them this is how it's going. So, they would just come spend time. But you just have to keep going, just wake up every morning, make sure that you open LinkedIn, you make sure you send that mail, make sure you, so I learned this, that after you put in an application, it's always good to just reach out to the recruiter.
Yeah.
Reach out to the recruiter with a personal message or a personal email saying that, hey, I read through the job description. I see that you're the lead recruiter for this. I'm really excited. I have so and so strong points, and I feel that I would be a good fit. Just a positive message to the recruiter, that increases your chances like a tenfold. And also a big thing was reach out to the person where you want to go. So as an example, if I wanted to go to Apple in California, specific to in Santa Clara. So I would find a person working in Santa Clara, reach out to him, talk to him, then ask him to refer me for the role.
Right.
So it would mean a lot.
Don't ask directly.
Not direct. Spend time, build a strong relationship.
Right.
And make sure you know what.
Because otherwise, what's gonna happen when people start seeing this. They're gonna come like, hey, I see that you are in Oregon area. Simmons, you said this in your podcast. Now give me a referral.
Yeah, definitely. No, it doesn't work that easily. You need to build connections. Spend time, understand what they're doing. Does it even really fit into what you want to do?
Right.
Make sure you understand everything, and then when it's a point where you know that they know a lot about you and they're comfortable, helping you out. That is when you reach out to them for the referrals.
And if you had to make, like, if you can remember, what changes did you make from January till March, in terms of, because when you started, you got a lot of rejection. March, you started getting approval, interview calls. So you must have started making some changes in the approach. What was that change?
So the first thing I did was to update my resume. For every application, I changed my resume. So based on the job description, I would put in that specific project, those specific tools that I use. So it would basically filter, put me at least on the top of the stack or the top of the candidates. So in a way that really helped me, and I got a lot of emails, saying that we would like to interview. So that was a boosting point for me. So one was the resume update. The second was that I would reach out to the recruiters themselves on LinkedIn. I would send them an email, or I would send them an email saying that this is this is who I am, this is so and so role that I'm interested in, and I would like to further discuss it.
And that's a technique called cold emailing, for those of you who don't know. So
so I think that's how I spend most of my time, just sending cold emails and but at times you do get back replies, and that's really heartwarming. You just know that it's gonna be worth it.
There is someone who's actually looked at my profile. I know, I totally understand. Okay, cool. So you made those changes, you started getting job calls, you interviewed with Siemens. I don't want to go specific into that, but what does your interview look like for your specific role? Like, how many interviews and what do they ask?
I had a total of 4 rounds. So the first 3 rounds were one-on-ones with the hiring manager and the team leads. And the last was a panel interview involving about 4 to 5 people. 5 people. And it was about 4.5 hours long.
Wow. On campus or?
It was remote for me.
Or like on, okay. And you said each round is technical or behavioral?
Each round is technical.
Technical. And like when you say technical, what kind of, like, is it hands-on technical or technical Q&A?
So the first one-on-ones that I had was technical Q&A. Like they would just ask me theoretical problem solving,
what
aptitude.
Give us some examples.
So they would give me a basic block of code and they would ask me to debug it, tell me what's wrong with the code. That is just a basic of it. Then they would rush into giving me, give me their idea of a design, and they would ask me like, what would you do with this design? Where would you go from, if I give you this design, where would you go with it? In terms of verification, so what tool to use first, what kind of parameters would you put on this?
So you really have to understand how your stuff works.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you won't be able to answer those. Okay. And what kind of preparation did you do for that?
So it was initially I had just my coursework that I studied and the projects that I studied from, but later after giving the initial interviews at different companies, I understood there's a lot that I'm missing out on. So then I went back, traced back my steps, and then started so those small tidbits that I didn't understand, I started focusing on those. Like, so there's a big part in verification called static timing analysis.
Okay.
So that was a major chunk which I get asked in every interview. So
for computer science and for software developers, we have this thing called lead code or hacker rank or things like that, or cracking the coding algorithm interviews. We have those tools. Like, is that something you guys have, or is it pretty much just knowledge from your classes, etc.?
There's a similar like as you said, lead code is like a website in which you can practice. There's something called EDA Playground.
EDA Playground.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where you can learn about like C, but for chip design, Verilog code, system Verilog code.
Okay.
As well as you can have like a basic knowledge of what kind of softwares we use.
Okay.
Other than that, so for the tools, you do need a Linux environment. If you do have a Linux environment, I would recommend you download Calibre. I recommend you download Encounter by Synopsys, and you can definitely practice custom designs of your own. Or also, you have pre-built designs online on EDA Playground, or as well as other sites such as this one website which I personally use is asic.co. So it's ASIC. So application specific integrated circuit.co. So that is the website that I used to study for my interviews as well.
Nice. And then I'm guessing Is there like a website where you would go and check like, okay, Siemens, let me see the common questions they usually ask for interviews?
So I used Glassdoor.
Okay.
So I used Glassdoor. I also used Quora. I used to go and check about a lot of questions that they have, but I found Glassdoor to be the most helpful because majority of what questions that I studied from Glassdoor I got in my interviews as well.
Okay. Okay. Cool. And so you said 3 one-on-ones, which were technical Q&A, and then panel round. What happened in panel round?
So in panel round, so there were so initially it was the HR and the hiring manager together, and then after that the remaining 3 people came one by one for 1 hour each. So
And ask same technical Q&A?
so the HR and the hiring manager, they wanted to know about my personality a little bit, but they still focused on the technical aspect of the role.
Okay.
So they told me like, this is what we are going to do. So what kind of knowledge do you have in this? What projects have you done? So that kind of around. And then later on, the remaining of those 3 people went really deep into the technical aspect of it, as to they really wanted to see how much I knew about what software they are using. They wanted to know what kind of knowledge I have about those softwares.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's total 4.5 hour, 5 hour
Yeah.
interview. And then you made it, obviously. You
Yeah.
had a job. What kind of salary range people make for this type of role?
So settling in the West Coast, places like California, places like Oregon, so you can expect a salary range of about 85 to almost 120 130K.
Yeah.
For freshers, this is just
Yeah.
for the freshers
Yeah.
slab. For experience, definitely there's more. You get 150 160 in the West Coast side. Coming to the Midwest, you have a range of about 80 to
Right.
100.
Awesome. Is there any last words of wisdom or tip you would give for the aspiring physical verification chip design person, or someone who wants to pursue masters in electrical EC?
If you're gonna come pursue your masters in US or anywhere in the world other than your home country, make sure that you're ready to be independent. You're ready to struggle. You're ready to enjoy life as well. But make sure that you have clarity in everything that you really want to do. Just don't be fancy about it, saying that I just want to go abroad for the sake of it. Make sure you research. You make sure you know where you want to end up after studying for those 2 years, because 2 years is a lot of time.
Yeah.
It should be worth it in the end. So
Yeah.
I think that's my advice.
And watch my videos.
Definitely watch his videos.
I'll send you the check.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think I learned a lot more, and now I have a lot more respect for all these M1 chips and these chips coming out. And whenever now people will say something about it, I'll think of you now. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and sharing your journey with us. Until our next one,
Keep smiling and keep hustling.
gotta hustle every single day.